These are some of the best Xbox games that you can play right now, covering a huge range of different genres and art styles. And in this video, we are going to break down every single one of them so you know what is worth playing. Right, boys, so welcome back to another video. Right here, we've got a sneak peek of my brand new set. I've not revealed this yet on the main channel or any of the other channels. What do you think? Give it a rating below in the chat. I think it's a solid 8 out of 10. We've nailed the lighting on it. But without wasting any more time, let's get on to the first game, which is Ark Ascend. Now, this title is kind of a remake. It isn't Ark 2, which was that random trailer that had Vin Diesel in for whatever reason. It's the same as Ark Survival Evolved, which I used to play a whole bunch when I was about 15, 16, when it was in early access on Steam. Obviously, that's on console now and so on. You can get that on Xbox Game Pass as well. But Ark Ascend is basically like a remaster rebuild that's on the Unreal Engine 5. So it's on the latest Unreal Engine, so it's got better graphics. It's still not got better performance though. The performance is like 30 FPS still. This is the only problem with the Ark games. Absolutely love the premise of them. Like, visually they look amazing. The world's incredible with all the different dinosaurs and all the base building and stuff you can do. The big multiplayer servers as well, around sort of 70 players on those servers. But then the performance is just so bad, regardless of if you've got a Series X, Xbox One, Xbox Series S, just really struggles to sort of handle that Unreal Engine. Even when I try and play Ark on my super expensive $10,000 4090 RTX gaming PC, it's still a little bit of a churn to run. But if you can get past that aspect of it, so much fun. Since the release of Ark Ascend, I've actually encouraged all of my mates to go ahead and download this new game so we can relive some of our childhood, because it's been years since we've actually played Ark. We used to have so much fun just like fighting these huge spiders and going into different caves, trying to tame different dinosaurs, building bases. I love survival games like this, especially ones like Ark that are set back in the dinosaur era. I think this is a very unique timeline of events, because most games are just like zombie survival games, like pretty cliche obvious stuff, whereas this is just something a little bit fresh, and I don't want to say new, but I haven't really seen many people attempt the sort of dinosaur vibes like Ark has. I'm also a bit of a sucker for huge open world games and also exploration, having those free roam elements. On the topic of exploration, let's talk about the next game, which is the Invincible. Now, this is sort of a little bit like Firewatch, you could say. It's got like quite a linear story path, a bit like Vanishing of Ethan Carter, but I absolutely love the overall vibe this game has. It's a really fun story game. So this is a single player only game, but the reviews of this title have been absolutely exceptional. You play as an astrobiologist named Yasan, and you're a part of the space race. So you land on this unknown planet, and you got to go and explore it, see what animals are on there, what dangers are on there, what life is on there. But visually, the art style is absolutely breathtaking. It's got amazing lighting and also really unique looking elements. It sort of reminds me of, as I said, sort of Firewatch, Vanishing of Ethan Carter, them sort of like linear story games, but also Alien Isolation. You've got this cool sort of like scanner thing that you run around the levels with, very similar to the heartbeat sensor that you have within the Alien Isolation game. And if you're looking for something that's a little bit different, that has a fantastic storyline, because this game is based off of a best-selling novel. So it's not like these games that we get like Call of Duty, that's like a multiplayer game with this terrible story campaign slapped onto it. You know, even some single-player games we get now, it's just a terribly written story. This is actually a brilliant book that's been turned into a video game, which I think they should do more often. It seems to make a lot of logical sense that, whereas what we seem to do is we seem to make a decent video game and slap together a terrible story and then like sell that for $70. Whereas this game's actually super well priced. You pick this up for around $20, which I think is super cheap for a modern title, and you're easily going to get your money's worth with the amount of content that is available here. The next title that I want to share with you is kind of free if you own Xbox Game Pass. Now, I think 99% of gamers have Xbox Game Pass because you need it in order to play online. So, you know, these are the games that you just get for free for paying for your online subscription, such as your Xbox Live Gold that you have to pay for anyways, but you now have these added benefits of the Game Pass library. Now, this title in particular is Dead Space, but it's the remastered version of Dead Space that literally launched in 2023, so it's not even that old. Dead Space is one of the best games from the Xbox 360 generation, now reimagined for modern-day next-gen consoles with 4K graphics, improved textures, and a few changes to the gameplay. Now, it's a sci-fi horror survival game, and this version of Dead Space has been rebuilt from the ground up. So it's like a complete remake. It's not just like a remaster, so it does feel a lot fresher when you actually play it. The remake brings jaw-dropping visual fidelity, suspenseful atmosphere with new audio improvements, and of course, as we've mentioned, a few changes to the gameplay, but it does stay faithful to the original game. So if you are a fan of the Dead Space genre and you did play the original Xbox 360, it's not going to be too much of a far cry from that variation. While we're on the topic of Dead Space, another space game that's available on Game Pass is Starfield. Now, I know Starfield's a little bit of a controversial one. people think it's terrible, it's a rubbish game, blah, 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 blah. It's still a Bethesda game that's a massive game with thousands of hours of gameplay included on Xbox Game Pass, so it's worth a note to mention. I've played a little bit of Starfield. I personally thought it was okay. You know, you sort of got the first hour or so where you do like all the mining missions and things like that. Then you sort of get into the sort of crux of what the game is about. I don't think it's too terrible. I think it was misunderstood when it got launched. Like, I don't think a lot of people have actually properly played, like, the Fallout stuff, the Skyrim stuff, like the actual Bethesda-style games. And they went and played Starfield. It was their first ever time playing, like, a flagship Bethesda sort of game, and they were expecting something completely different, especially some of the younger people that played it. Just like their first exposure to that style of game. They were just a little bit shocked by how it sort of was. I don't think it's a terrible game. I also don't think it's an amazing game, but it's definitely worth playing if you've got Xbox Game Pass and you're looking for something sort of try out on your new generation console, maybe got your first Xbox or a new next generation Xbox. It is only available on Xbox Series S and Series X, so you can't play it if you have an Xbox One. So, you know, if you have one of those next generation consoles, you may as well, you know, flex on your mates that you do get to play some exclusive titles on it. Now, the next game is something that I didn't expect to be putting on this list. It's a genre that I don't really play anymore, and that is fighting games, and more specifically, Mortal Kombat 1. Now, I used to be a huge fan of Mortal Kombat. I used to play Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 on my Xbox 360. My favorite Mortal Kombat was the Mortal Kombat vs. DC Universe. That was just one I really enjoyed as a kid. It was sort of my first proper fighting game. Played that a lot on the Xbox with my friends. But literally since about 2011, 2012, I have never touched a fighting game since, other than the odd bit of exposure to like a Street Fighter and a few matches here or there. But this year I decided to pick up the collector's edition of Mortal Kombat 1 because it had a super cool statue. It literally had this like 12-inch statue, I think it was, of Li Chan, which glowed in the dark. It had a load of other cool accessories, including some different posters, and of course a copy of the game for the Xbox Series X. Something really unique as well. It was a physical copy of the game, which is quite bizarre. Usually you buy these collector's editions and you still get a digital code for the game, which just makes no sense. Like with the Spider-Man collector's edition that I purchased, you just get an empty steelbook case with no disc inside of it, which I think just is like taking the piss. Now, Mortal Kombat 1 is a reboot for the franchise. It's a little bit confusing. It's actually the 12th game, so it's technically Mortal Kombat 12, but this is them sort of attempting to reboot, or as they say in the marketing, the Mortal Kombat Reborn. And so I think they're sort of resetting the franchise so they can go afresh again, take it in a new direction. There's also, you know, a little bit of changes to the gameplay, some new fighting game modes as well, just sort of modernize the approach to the fighting genre, because I don't know about you, but I just don't know whether this title, like sort of fighting games are as popular as they once were. So they're sort of making a bit more of a fresh approach with this, a hard reset and going in a new direction. This reboot is also presented with an opportunity for a fresh approach to the storyline. There's a new timeline, changes to some of the origin stories for various characters, which I guess just offers a little bit of flexibility to keep things nice and fresh, especially for older players that may have, you know, played every single Mortal Kombat and were maybe getting a little bit bored of the direction of the story. The next game is a personal favorite of mine, despite the negativity it did receive when it first came out, and that is actually Payday 3. Now, I played Payday 2 quite a lot on the Xbox 360 and also on the PC when I converted over from console gaming to PC gaming through my sort of predominant teen years. But Payday 3 was a brand new installment to this franchise, because Payday 2 had been out for, it's like GTA 5, it had been out for like a decade, like remastered a million times, Xbox 360, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, but Payday 3 was a completely new installment into this selection of games. Now, Payday 3 is another title that is available on Xbox Game Pass. You can play it on a huge range of other consoles, but it's included for free on Xbox Game Pass, so it's definitely worth a play. It's also very easy to encourage your friends to be a part of it because it is on Game Pass, so it is a 4-player co-op game, so because obviously you play in a gang that goes in and obviously does the different heists, so you can do that with up to 3 mates, including yourself. And there's a bunch of different missions. I actually have a video on this channel breaking down everything you sort of need to know about Payday 3, because I did get the privilege of getting to play this game early at Google HQ. I went there for an event to do with my other YouTube channel, and this game was just randomly there playable, and I was like, oh, let's have a little bit of play, mate. And I thoroughly enjoyed the couple of games that I played with some various Payday 3 content creators as well. And it is something a little bit different in the FPS genre. You know, typical FPS shooters like multiplayer, very competitive, whereas this encourages a little bit more team play. Still got all the shooting elements that you might like, but you've got the things to consider like the AI, you know, the approach to the mission, and a little bit more tactics. Now, the final game that I want to talk about is Forza Motorsports. This is another title that's available on Xbox Game Pass, and it's a pretty solid racing game. This would technically be Forza Motorsports 8, but like a lot of games, they've gone ahead and restarted the franchise. It's got very impressive visuals, especially on the Xbox Series X version with 4K 60 FPS, and also some major improvements to the AI, and also the way the races are structured. So you now can have full race weekends with you like practicing, qualifying, then going into an an actual race. This gives you more opportunity to get XP and also different sort of credits and things like that, different challenges that you can complete. But also the AI has been massively improved with also a new sort of what would you call it, like a FIA racing sort of system. So any penalties and things like that actually apply. So if there's too much bumping and bashing going on, you're cutting corners, those will actually be applied, and there'll be penalties and penalizations within the actual race. This is sort of trying to make Forza a little bit more of a serious track racing game. It wasn't that it wasn't really serious before, but you know, you could bump into the AI and do sort of whatever you liked. So it just makes it a little bit more of an actual, you could say, simulator style racing game than previous titles. There's also some new ways of getting credits faster within the game with things such as changing your track position. So even if you qualified first in qualifying, you could actually say, look, I want to start the race last, and then that'll give you race bonuses depending on where you actually finish. So if you went from last to first or last to 5th or 6th, you'll get extra money because you put yourself back on the actual starting roster, which I think is another cool element that just makes it a little bit more challenging, because again, once you get used to playing games like Forza, and even when you have the AI cranked up to like unbeatable, you can easily beat them, and you need these other elements to just make it a little bit more of a challenge. There's been a lot of hate for Forza Motorsports. There's people comparing it to Gran Turismo and saying the graphics of Gran Turismo are better and Forza Motorsports is not as good and that type of stuff. I just think that's sort of like, it's just nonsense. I get a little bit exhausted with people consistently compare games. For starters, you know, Forza Motorsports has got newer cars than Gran Turismo. No one really talks about that. You know, Gran Turismo is great, brilliant game, don't get me wrong, but you can't compare the two, because the way that they go ahead and make Gran Turismo, they make it over like a whole decade, crafting every element of the physics, every element of this, which then means when the game finally comes out, the whole selection of cars is completely out of date. There's like literally hardly any modern cars in Gran Turismo 7. I think they've literally just added a Tesla in DLC, but when it actually came out, they were all like 4 or 5 year old cars. Whereas at least in Forza Motorsports, you have some of the latest and greatest cars that have literally just launched in the last 12 months, a part of the game from day one. So if you're more of a car fanatic in terms of just wanting to look at the latest cars and have a play around in them, then it is just the perfect game for that. I think fundamentally, even though Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsports are both track racing games, they are trying to achieve two completely different things and also attract a different target demographic, which just makes it a little bit daft to even try and compare them. Now, obviously, these are some of the latest and greatest games that you can play on your Xbox, but if you want to see some more games that you can actually play for free on Xbox Game Pass and you don't want to miss them before they get removed from the store, you should check out this video next, where I share with you some of my favorite Xbox Game Pass titles that I've thoroughly enjoyed playing.